Hello, listeners. This is John, your humble host, with a quick announcement before we begin the show. My guest on this episode is Brad LeBaron, and in the interview, you'll discover that Brad comes from a family of Star Trek fans, including his siblings. In between the time we recorded this in April 2023 and the release date in August, his sister Mel unexpectedly passed away. So with Brad's permission, we're going to dedicate this episode to Mel's memory. She was a big Star Trek fan, and she will be missed by all who knew her. On with the show.
There's a level of Star Trek horniness that I'm just not willing to explore.
Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 80, recorded April 2023. This is the Trek Profiles Podcast, where each episode we talk with a Star Trek fan. We take tricorder readings of their fandom, and we try to discover why we all love this show so much. I'm John, your intrepid host of this whole enterprise, and I welcome you to this, the Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 80. If you wish to get in touch with us, you can reach us at feedback@trekprofiles.com or on Facebook or Twitter @TrekProfiles. Spoiler warning, any episode of Star Trek may be discussed during this show, including episodes that came out after the episode was recorded. You have been warned, humans. As always, my trusty sidekick and co-host is the constantly classy, slightly scary, yet decidedly dainty M5 Multitronic unit. Say hello to the people, M5.
M5 activated.
Okay, M5, what messages do we have?
The M5 complies.
The Trek Profiles Podcast is an independent show. If you'd like to support us, the best way to do that is just follow us wherever you're getting your audio. We are on all the major platforms, and your following us helps other Trek fans find us. Another way to show your support is to make a donation in any amount to our official charity here at the show. That's the Children's Fund for Glycogen Storage Disease. A donation in any amount helps, as they are doing research to cure this terrible genetic condition. I talked about this more in episode 34 of the show, so if you're able, and if you'd like, please head on over to trekprofiles.com/donate, and you'll see the link there to give directly to the charity, and I'll also put a link in the show notes too. Thank you so much. There are some lightly edited outtakes and bonus material at the end of this episode. All that will come after the ending audio cards. Enjoy them, or not, as you choose. At the end of every episode, my guest faces my Kobayashi Maru lightning round. They get 5 terrible multiple-choice Star Trek questions, and they must give us their answer. After each episode drops, I send those questions out as polls where you can have your say. Let's look at the questions from episode 78 with Eric Christofferson and see how it went. Which subject should we take up in school? Exochemistry, fractal calculus, or xenolinguistics? Eric picked the fractal calculus, but exochemistry was the choice in the poll by 54%. The other two got 23% apiece. Best Captain's Chair, 1701 refit, Voyager, or the 1701D? Eric was all about the Voyager, but the 1701D was the choice of the people with 39%. The 1701 refit got 34%, and Voyager came in at 27%. Who are we having lunch with on the USS Discovery? Saru, Nan, Adira, or Tilly? Eric thought lunch with Nan would be yum yum, but Saru was the choice online at 38%. Tilly got 31%, Adira got 16%, and Nan got 15%. Pick the best Federation colony. Cygnia Minor, Alpha Eridani 2, or the Vega colony. Eric picked Vega, but Alpha Eridani 2 was the choice online at 41%. Vega got 32%, and Cygnia Minor was in last place at 27%. And finally, what are we doing after work? Getting thirsty for Baku villagers? Creating a time paradox in the Devron system? Or hot dropping the saucer section? Eric liked being thirsty for the Baku villagers, but that was in second place in the poll at 42%. Barely nudging it out was hot dropping the saucer section at 44%, and very few people were interested in time paradoxes, with only 14%. Now, if you enjoyed those questions and would like to take a stab at writing your own for possible inclusion in the show, send them to me at feedback@trekprofiles.com or DM me on Twitter. That's it for news and announcements. Let's do it to it. M5, start the show.
Acknowledged. Transmission begins now.
His favorite character is that denobulent doctor of disease denial, Phlox, but he also loves all the various flavors of Jeffrey Combs. His favorite ship is the Titan. We'll have to find out if it's the Dash A or not in a minute. He's from Madison, Wisconsin, North America, Earth, in Sector 001. It's Brad LeBaron. Welcome, Brad. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me, and thanks for that awesome introduction. I love that.
Hey, you're welcome. That's like the kind of introduction we do every episode here. So, you get your own custom intro, your own.
Yeah.
Here's Johnny. God, how old am I that I can say that? Most people have no idea what that is. You probably have no idea what that is.
I know Here's Johnny. I know Here's Johnny. Yeah, I understand
all
the
right,
reference.
fantastic. Well, I feel good now. Okay, I feel much better. So, Brad, the M5 demands that I ask question 1, which is, are you a Star Trek fan?
Yes, I am.
And when did you decide that you were a Star Trek fan? When did you have this moment, this lightning bolt struck you in the head, and you said, you know what, I'm a Trekkie with whatever that entails?
So that's the thing for me in this is that I don't think I have a moment because I don't remember a time without Star Trek. So it's just always been in the background of my life. So, because my parents are also huge Star Trek fans. So, I can't tell you the first time I even became aware of it. So,
are you going to share this episode with Mom and Dad?
I'm not sure yet.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
All right, fair enough, Brad. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So then, what is your earliest Star Trek memory?
I think probably the earliest Star Trek memory would be seeing random episodes of the original series as reruns, probably at one of my grandparents' house. They were, I think they were playing a lot at that time, in cable, they were doing reruns and stuff. So, yeah, my dad was excited to see the original series on TV. I was excited to see this strange world with Spock and Kirk and the guys. The original series has got so many wacky hijinks that are interesting for, a young kid like me at the time. It went on from there. I don't know if I can remember like a specific episode even. I just remember them running around doing their crazy adventures and trying to, as like a 3 or 4 year old, trying to, make sense of what I was seeing.
And this was in Wisconsin?
This would have been somewhere in Illinois. That's where my family is from, Illinois, and then we migrated to Wisconsin for the cheese.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And so, as you were watching TOS in reruns, do you have a recollection of when new Star Trek came out?
I don't know if I'm not sure if I remember when it came out because that's also like we would see the original series at the grandparents' house. And then at home, that's I think where we were seeing the next gen because, my dad was a Trekkie keeping up to date with it. Although I don't think that Next Gen really struck with me as much as the original series for at least a few years, like maybe not until like, I don't know, 9 or 10 or something when Next Gen started to really sink in for me. And by then, I think they were on reruns. I think it might have just been a case of like, oh, that's something Dad's into. I'm not going to be into that. And then, seeing the reruns, I'm like, oh, this is actually really great. Yeah, at some point, early teens maybe is when the Next Gen part of it entered my consciousness. And I think that's where it was really off to the races for me, because that's with all the morality tales and all of the, episodic, just I don't know, such well-written stories and everything. It just was encapsulating. So from then on, I was on board, I think, for myself rather than just as like it being something in my family.
One of the usual stories that I often hear with lifers such as yourself is that they watched it as a kid, watched it as a teen, and then eventually they go off, go to college or leave home or, go do something else, and they kind of fall off and then maybe get back into it. I mean, what's your story there? How did it work for you?
I don't know. I don't know if I ever fell off because this is like, for me, Star Trek is like comfort food. It's something that throughout my 20s, I had friends that, we'd catch a episode late at night after hitting up the bars or something. That's the thing. As in my entire life, there's always been once a night an episode of Star Trek somewhere on TV. You know what I mean? So like, and this might sound old to people that are only in streaming age, but it was one of those things that you could always count on to be there through thick and thin. And I mean that often the friends that I made and like kept were people that would also be sitting next to me watching Star Trek and having the same kind of relationship with it. So
You must.
It's always been there for me.
You must have always lived in markets where Star Trek was not preempted by sports every 5 minutes, because that's something that I think a lot of us dealt with.
Yeah, my dad wasn't very into sports at all, I don't think. Neither was my mom. So, it was really just...
I'm not explaining myself clearly.
Oh, okay.
There was many times when Star Trek was supposed to be on, and you turned on the TV at 8 o'clock on a Saturday, whatever time it's supposed to be on, and
right.
there's a baseball game.
Oh, yeah. I was always like, I would always stay up really late, so it was always like midnight or 1. All of a sudden, Star Trek would pop on and be like, "Hey, it's Star Trek, guys! Let's watch it. Let's watch an episode."
Very nice, very nice. So, did you stay current with all your Star Trek watching?
So here's the thing, as far as the current stuff goes. So I was, like I said, it was my comfort food for a long time, and then the CBS thing started happening, so there was like new stuff coming out, and I think I was kind of skeptical about it for a minute because I love my old Star Trek, as one does. And then I think probably about, I don't know, I want to say a year ago now, I started finally trying to catch up with some of the Star Trek Discovery, and I watched like the first season of Picard. And Lower Decks, I love Lower Decks. That's probably my favorite, like, newer Star Trek property. Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's jumping into the new stuff has then made me go back and finally do, like, full watch-throughs of these seasons. Because the thing about my fandom is that I've never been the type for Star Trek, especially, to watch it episode by episode. I always pick and choose. I always like jump around. So like, for a lot of the series, I don't think I've seen a chunk of the episode. So I'm not I haven't done the complete like book to book end to end journey yet. Although watching this new stuff started me actually weirdly on that journey again, because I've seen, in the last like 6 months, I saw all of Enterprise. I'm almost done with DS9. I think what happened is Star Trek left Netflix, and then I like kind of panicked. And I was like, it's always been there for me. It's always just been available to me, and now it's in its own place, and I have to. And like I immediately signed up for Paramount Plus, and I was like, I need this in my life again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I appreciate the new stuff, the old stuff. The new stuff I still haven't seen a whole lot of, but I think Discovery, I'm in like season 2 or something, and it's starting to, feel a little more episodic. But yeah.
So have you seen, as we're recording this, Picard season 3 is coming out. Have you seen any of that?
I've seen 2 episodes so far. First 2 episodes. And the reason I stopped is because I saw Worf in episode 2, mm-hmm. and I was like, I still haven't completed his arc really in DS9. So like, so I was like, I might just, I'm going to stop watching Picard until I'm at least done with DS9. Because I'm afraid of spoilers, I guess, at this point for DS9. I'm so invested in DS9 that I don't want anything from Picard that's going to show Worf's past. Yeah, I mean, my sister has been saying good things. She really wants me to catch up, and I'm like, I'm almost done with DS9. I'll be there soon. So, my sister, Mel, is actually someone that's always kind of getting on me to, like, watch the current stuff because she's, like, up to date with, like, everything.
So, apologies in advance because I know I'm putting you on the spot with this question, but best guess off the top of your head, what percentage of all Star Trek that's been released do you think you've seen?
Probably, I mean, I think it's safe to say it's more than half. Probably, like, I'd say 60 to 70%. If I'm being honest, because like Next Gen, I've seen every episode of Next Gen, just never in order. I've seen most of Voyager, and I'm just listing. I'm trying to figure it out. Enterprise, DS9's almost done.
Well,
there's so many properties for Star Trek nowadays. It's hard to even keep track of now.
Well, you're bringing up something that I think is a common situation, I think, for a lot of fans who are in a little bit of the older demographic. No, and maybe the younger demographic, too, now that I think about it, which is that in the age of streaming, everything's available all the time. And so you kind of want to just go back to your favorite episodes that you know you're going to like. And, you know, you're not going to seek out that season that was kind of or, you know, didn't thrill you all that much. And there's probably episodes you've forgotten about in there. Whereas if you're old enough to have seen Star Trek when it was on TV, an episode was selected for you and you had to watch it or there was no Star Trek. And so now I think it almost forces you to sit there and have like these disciplined rewatches where you're like, okay, season 4, episode 1, season 4, episode 2, and you just kind of got to go through it. Because if you just sit there and pick and choose, you know, you're going to have a Swiss cheese experience. I don't think there's any way around it.
And for me, I think as far as like the watching through and getting like kind of bogged down by it, my strategy with streaming with older episodic TV where they had to do 26 episodes a year, which is an insane amount of TV for the streaming age. And there's going to be some scenes or some episodes that are a little duller than others. And it's okay to skip forward or like fall asleep. You know what I mean? Like I try not to like be too strict on myself about it with older television that is paced differently, you know. I don't know. Every now and again, I might miss a little bit here and there. But I think that, I don't know, maybe that's just my age showing, but I try not to be too strict on myself about the binge watching. So there's just so much.
It sounds like watching Star Trek is a solo experience for you.
A lot of times, yeah. Unless my sister's around or one of the movies comes out. And pretty much every time a movie's come out, that's been like a family outing. So...
Is that why the M5 wanted me to ask you about movie releases? Yeah.
That's probably why he wants you to bring that up. We went to a convention once when we were young with our dad. Every movie that came out, I think within my lifetime, we went and saw together, regardless of, you know, what was going on in life. It's like, oh, the new Star Trek's out. Let's go check it out. So, the movies and the TV is just kind of whoever's around. And lately it's been me. That's my social experience, I guess, so far with Star Trek.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but how are you consuming the episodes? On a personal device, on a big screen TV, or something in between?
My TV in the living room with some surround sound. Yeah, you know, sometimes if it's been like a few episodes, I'll get up and pace or something while it's going on, do some chores, keep myself occupied. I can usually only do like maybe 2 episodes at a time. I'm not really a full binge watcher these days. I can't do it. Because by the third one, I'm just like, I don't enjoy this no matter what it is.
So. I got to say, for me, it's a little weird because I live tweet when I watch Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
So it's always a project when I put on an episode, and you know, I have to get the computer up and I got to get the Twitter open, and you know, I just can't put on an episode and watch it. The only time I'm actually doing that is when I'm watching something as prep for the show. And so my rule is that I watch episodes as prep for Trek Profiles.
Yeah.
But then when I'm going to live tweet, I pick an episode at random, and I have a random episode picker.
Oh,
and
cool.
I'm very disciplined about that.
Yeah, and is it from all series?
All series, all episodes. Now, I do have some rules.
That's wild.
It's up on my website if people are interested, but I actually have rules. So if I just discussed something on Trek Profiles, I'm not going to rewatch it. Yeah. If it's something that is less than a year old, I won't rewatch it.
Okay.
Only because I'm one of these people that if I dislike something, I'm going to say like, this is stupid or I hate it. And I just don't want to get like some creator from the show who reads a tweet and feels bad or like wants to come yell at me.
Yeah. That's fair.
So I just don't want that. So I feel like I have to let them sort of fade into history a little bit before I give them the live tweet experience.
Yeah. I agree. I kind of like, I feel like way about like good things too. Cause like if something is really good, people will be talking about it in a few years. You know what I mean? And if people aren't talking about a thing in a few years, maybe it wasn't that good.
Yeah. You gotta let it, you gotta let it see how it ages.
Yeah. Definitely.
Have you been a Star Trek collector at all? You have felt the urge to buy anything? T-shirts, ships, toys?
I'm not much of a collector. I don't have like a lot of like knickknacks or anything, but I do have my sister just bought me an apron that's also a Star Trek uniform, and I do have a Halloween outfit, of course. Just whenever I need to, I can appear as an officer, and so yeah, I've definitely done that maybe 3 or 4 times.
Brad, you're going to have to tell us what uniform it is. That's the kind of show that this is.
It's the gold one. It's the gold one from
TOS?
Next Gen.
Next Gen. Okay.
Next Gen. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we need those details here.
Oh, absolutely. That's
the level we're going
for. I understand. Yeah. I've never been to like a convention with it or anything, but I think that would be cool. I haven't been to a Star Trek convention since I was a kid.
But you have been to one.
I have been to one. I went to one that Kirk was at.
Oh, His Royal Shatness.
Yes. And royal he was. He was definitely that was definitely the first time I saw like a kind of Hollywood diva type situation, because oh man, he just had so many little different regulations as to he got up on stage, he said his bit, he was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was cool to see him, and I've seen him actually a few years back. Me and my dad and my brothers went and saw him when he came to Madison. So yeah, seen him a couple times.
Very good. And any plans to go back? I know this Mission Chicago was in your area. That's not too far. That was last year, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I should look into them, because if I go, I'd want to go with my family.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I didn't know there was one so close. So.
Well, that one rotates. So the Mission ones rotate.
I see. Okay.
And this is probably a little too in the fandom weeds for you, but it turns out that there's not actually an officially licensed Star Trek convention this year.
Oh, really?
So a company called ReedPop owns the license, and they did the one in Chicago last year, and they were supposed to do one next month in Seattle. As we record this, it's April. They were supposed to do one in May in Seattle, and they canceled it.
Oh man!
So
that's
the only officially licensed Star Trek event was the Star Trek Cruise.
Oh yeah. I heard all about that.
Yeah, I was on it.
Oh, what? You were there?
Oh yeah.
Oh man! So did you see Tawny Newsome?
I saw everybody. Yes.
Oh man!
Yes.
You see,
in fact, I went to one of her events.
Oh man, that's awesome! I'm a big Earwolf nerd, and a lot of people from Earwolf ended up on Lower Decks.
Oh really?
As voice actors. So I heard all about it from the different podcasts. They all told their different perspectives on their trip. It was fun. Paul F. Tompkins is someone I'm really interested in. Yeah. He's the cat? No, not cat. He's a bird psychologist.
Dr. Miglimu.
Yeah. That's who he's playing. Yeah.
So if you want to get a little bit of the flavor, feel free to load up my page on Twitter.
Yeah,
and you can go all the way back to February, and you can. I was posting from the cruise 4 or 5 times a day, including video, audio, lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. So in fact, one of the biggest tweets I ever sent was in that went the biggest.
Oh, I mean, I bet you're right in the heart of it.
Yeah, it's a very strange experience. It's a very strange experience.
If you want to know kind of my perspective on Star Trek in general, Tawny Newsome actually is one of the kind of gateways in modern times for me, because she is someone that is so. On all the podcasts she's been on, she's so upfront with her Trekkie fandom. She's always been, and then she got a role, a leading role in a Star Trek thing, and she's just kind of driving, I think, this new generation of interest towards the Star Trek fandom, which I'm really appreciating. And also, taking all of the knowledge of it and poking fun at it and having such those Lower Deck episodes are just some of my favorite things I think Star Trek has done in general. They're just so witty, and there's so many little details in the backgrounds everywhere. So yeah, Tawny Newsome can't talk good enough about.
That she's on the writing staff now.
Yes, that's what I heard, and she'll
be on the writing staff for the Starfleet Academy show.
Yeah. I've been keeping up with her news, and I'm very, very stoked about that.
We will see what the Starfleet Academy show is. They haven't released really anything about it. It's just some very few things.
So do you know, maybe you can confirm this or deny this, knowing more about Star Trek, do you know if Tawny Newsom's character is supposed to show up in live action? Because that's a rumor that I heard.
Well, that's in Strange New Worlds.
Wait, has that already happened?
Yeah, it's already been filmed. Yeah, that's already happened. I mean, it hasn't been out. It's not out.
Okay.
But it's already been made, if that's what you're looking for. I mean, they might still be working on it in post-production, but...
No.
But, I mean, they were talking about it on the Star Trek cruise.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's going to be in the upcoming season of Strange New Worlds. You're going to see the animated live-action crossover episode.
Man, that's so cool.
And they all they could say was just how excited they were about it and how insane it was. And, you know, just talking it up, as they're paid to do. But I think it's going to be really one for the ages. I don't know. That's my feeling about it. I could be wrong, but I feel like they're really going to do something amazing.
Oh, yeah. I think that, they're going to pull out all the stops. That's so cool.
But this the Starfleet Academy show is going to be a different thing entirely. So we will see what that is. We'll have to get some more information about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so not much of a collector.
Yeah, not so much. I got knickknacks, but my dad and my brother are probably more of collectors of those kinds of things.
What's the item that your dad is probably never gonna has locked in a closet, under armed guard?
Well, I guess Dad mostly just has like the DVDs and stuff. He mostly just has the old school way of keeping track of things. And then my brother Scott, he's the one with all the toys. He's got a couple of the ships. He's got some minis of the ships. He's got a handful of phasers. You know what I mean?
You're a Star Trek family.
Yeah. And my sister, I want to say she's got some outfits. Yeah. Yeah, very, very, very big in our family. Very important.
Okay, Brad. So, the M5 is telling me that it is now time to talk about some episodes. Are you game?
All right. Yeah, I'm game.
Well, we're going to start with TNG. I don't think this episode has ever come up on Trek Profiles before, so I'm glad to talk about it with you.
Okay.
And it's New Ground, TNG Season 5, Episode 10.
Yeah.
Worf's son, Alexander, comes to live on board the Enterprise, and the crew helps in a test for a new form of super-duper mega warp drive. So what about this episode touched you, my man? Why is it special to you?
First of all, this is one that I think was the first one that I kind of made, a big emotional connection and like connected it to my life, like one-to-one. Whereas, a lot of times, sometimes you're not necessarily doing that. You're like, oh, this is a cool story, but it's another person's story. This was very much similar to my story.
Are you going to tell me your dad's parenting style was in the Worf vein?
Yeah, definitely. And also he is more of a Worf type dude. And I'll explain that. So, first of all, for a long time throughout my life, my dad has been someone background. He's not great at expressing emotion or sharing emotion. And we would always joke that he was kind of like Data. You know what I mean? He just didn't know how to approach it or whatever. But this was the episode that kind of completely changed my perspective on that. I had always thought he was like Data, and I had always told people that. But when this episode happened, I'm like, wait, actually, he's not Data, he's Worf. Yeah, it just kind of unlocked this new perspective on, like, what made Dad different, from Data to Worf. And, part of that is Worf's... I'm a pastor's kid, by the way. My dad's a pastor, so there is like kind of some built-in honor stuff, and you got to be, you got to look good as the pastor's kid in front of the congregation and all that. You got to be behaved and all that. So, he's someone that has, never been physical, but is always very disciplined and sometimes abrasive with some of the ways that he would, especially when dealing with the divorce when I was young. Sometimes he would let that anger show through, which is something that is very primal and instinctual for Worf and for Klingons. Is the fact that they have so much rage inside, and that yet they have to create society together and create community together despite that. But so this episode, Worf having such difficulty, first of all, connecting to his son, second of all, like kind of being openly disdainful of the fact that he has to take care of him, even though he loves him. And just kind of watching Worf grapple with this difficulty in a relationship was just so mind-opening for me. You know, it helped me see Dad it helped me understand my dad a little more, I guess, is what I mean. Yeah, I don't know. It's just something that has always been in my mind when I think about, like, when did I kind of realize what our dynamic was? And this is the episode I think I did.
Have you ever asked him about this?
No. I don't think I've ever talked to him about the fact that I think he's Worf. But
how do you think he might respond if you were to say that to him?
I think he'd probably chuckle and he might agree. It's also a difficult relationship because it's like, I don't want to imply that he's, he didn't want me, like Worf does, doesn't. Mm-hmm. And even in the episode, it's not as if he doesn't want to spend time with them. It's more that he is a very busy individual. He's in Starfleet, and he sees it as a better, experience for him in general to be away in school, Klingon school or whatever. If we want, we can go to the next time you see Alexander, which actually kind of completes the arc of this story, because he returns in DS9.
Yes, of course. And
he has a lot of resentment still towards Worf because kind of the similar stuff as in this episode. He's shipped away to Klingon school or whatever, and he has to deal with some adversity in that. And what's great about DS9, though, is they have episodes and like seasons to kind of explore that, and you get to kind of see their relationship grow in a really cool way. But yeah, this one was such a new ground, was such an out of left field episode that I would always think about from time to time when thinking about Star Trek. And then,
whatever you think about the Worf-Alexander relationship, it just has to be admitted that Alexander was pretty hard done by.
Yeah.
From his family. I mean, from his mother, keeping him a secret, all of that. We seem to have a lot of that in Star Trek, keeping secret kids. It seems to be a recurring theme for some reason. Secret family members, Star Trek loves that, just pulling out, this is my brother who I never spoke about, or my cousin.
It's the fact that they never speak about them. It's the weird thing.
It's really
all of
weird.
a sudden they're there. Yeah.
And the poor kid just gets hard done by. I mean, his father doesn't want him. His mother gets killed. I mean, he has a rough life. It's no wonder he has some issues to deal with.
Yeah. And right now I'm kind of in a therapy journey, trying to, work on grappling myself from, some of the difficulties in old relationships and things. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the episodes that it still is, feels important to that journey, I guess.
So at the LeBaron viewing party, family viewing party, how do you think this is going to go over with the brothers and sisters? You think they're going to agree with your interpretation?
I don't know. I'm
really putting you on the spot here.
My brother Scott, probably not so much, because he was the one that was with Dad, and then there was the three of us that were like, we went to his house for the weekend. You know what I mean? So in that sense, we also had that dynamic with Worf, where it was like, oh, we don't see you most of the time. It's just, every weekend. So yeah, Dad's house wasn't necessarily home. And yeah, mostly like the difficulty in probably in discussing it in general that Star Trek is trying to get at is that there's kind of no easy way to deal with certain family situations. The fact that Alexander went through so much, it's like there was some fault with Worf for being, pushing him away, and, maybe some fault with the grandparents for, not being able to take care of him or something. But like, ultimately, though, it was a horrible situation that Alexander just kind of had to survive out of. So, that's another, beautiful thing about Star Trek is that there are these really difficult stories, difficult emotional things that people grapple with that are hard to talk about, that Star Trek helps you get through.
Speaking about secret or lost family members, let's talk about Data Lore, TNG, Season 1, Episode 13.
Yeah.
This, of course, is the one where we go to planet Omicron Theta, where we find Data's long-lost brother, Lore, also played by Brent, in a delightfully evil and mustache-twirling way. So is this more the same for you, Brad, or is there something else going on here with this one?
Oh, shit. So this one is almost nothing to do with the, emotionally speaking, almost has
sure?
nothing to do with New Ground.
Are you sure about that? I stroke my chin and ponder.
I think that there is stuff that you could go in that direction with in the episode, but for me, that's not what this episode represents. For me, it brings me back to my childhood. It brings me back to when I'd be sick from school or something. This was an episode I liked to watch. This was an episode that I came back to several times because it's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's fun, and I don't know. It was one of the episodes that definitely made TNG one of my favorites. It's just a wild ride. I don't know. It just always, every time I see it, it just brings me back to sitting on the couch, just nursing my my flu or cold or something, and just laughing at Data, or not Data, but Lore, just saying to Wesley, "Are you prepared for the kind of death you've earned, little man?" Like, and Data being, one of the, greatest characters. He's definitely one of my favorites. I almost chose him over Phlox, but I was like, Data's like everyone's favorite, right?
That's not true. That's not true. There's a lot of Spock fans out there, and I've had people on who like some pretty weird characters, so you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Data is one of the best. He's definitely in my top 5 for sure. I love seeing Brent Spiner opening up, just like getting to run with his acting. And Wesley has always been Wesley Data episodes have always been in particular my favorites. I love the dynamic between the young kid that's smart and's got something to prove, and then Data, and Data is someone that I think that maybe this is the connection. Data is someone that I kind of realized, after realizing Dad wasn't Data, Dad is Worf, I started realizing I was actually more Data, because I do.
You're going to have to say more about that, yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I struggled with, especially in like high school, is that I was worried about becoming as emotionless as I saw my dad as. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be that cold. And so it was something that was on my mind a lot. And I think that I kind of, I don't know, maybe created a problem where there didn't need to be one. I mean, I know now that I have plenty of emotion gushing out of me, and it has never really been a problem. But yeah, I was kind of like convincing myself that I was like an unemotional being, and like I couldn't express correctly. And part of that is just dealing with how you approach masculinity, dealing with how you approach identity in general, I guess. And I think the common misconception with Data is that he doesn't have emotions, and that's his whole thing. He doesn't have emotions, he doesn't have the human things. But I think that's actually, like, I don't know. I think Data is actually the one who has most of the emotions, more of the emotions in a more pure way than a lot of the people around him, because when he's experiencing emotions in an episode or something, he's experiencing them for like the first time, and he's exploring that in like a very philosophical way. And yeah, I've always been connected to that aspect of Data and just his kind of zenness that he brings to just every situation.
One of the fan theories that's often bandied about is that Data has always had emotions all along, right from the start, but he didn't have a frame of reference to understand that that's what they were. You can react to that if you want to say something about that.
That's a good call, because I mean, he does wake up on the slab just kind of already going. So it doesn't, and that's the difference between him and Lore. Is Lore has the past, he has got the history, which turned out bad for in that case. That's interesting. And it's kind of in front of you the whole time, because Lore has emotions. So
quite right.
Yeah. So if Lore has emotions, ergo. So yeah, I never considered that. But that's a very, very good observation from whoever whoever is putting that fan
I
theory
didn't
out
come
there.
up with it, and I don't have an opinion on it really strongly either way.
Yeah.
But it is something that I've heard from time to time, so I thought you might like to react to that.
Also, while we're on the subject of Data, I think that one of the worst things that has ever happened in Star Trek was killing Data off in that movie. That was truly...
Oh, and Nemesis?
That was truly horrible, and I will never be okay with it.
Hey, but that's the thing about science fiction, man. Everybody comes back.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know, man. I still feel... I mean, even though in Picard Season 1, they kind of... there's some furthering... I don't know. It's always stuck bad with me. Even the second I walked out of the theater, I'm like, what did they do? Like... So,
you know the part of Nemesis that gets me every time I watch it?
Yeah.
Which is that I am such a fan of Tom Hardy in so many amazing things he's been in. He's been in so many amazing things.
Yeah.
And every time I watch him, I'm just mesmerized.
Yeah.
And he's just wasted in this movie. He's just wasted. He did not get a good performance. Yeah. They did not get a good performance out of him. I mean, he was early in his career.
Yeah, I was going to say, that might be before I was aware of him. I don't think I remember... Which character was he?
Shinzon.
Okay. So
he's the Romulan, the shaved-headed Romulan, the clone of Picard.
I got to go back and watch that again.
Have you seen Peaky Blinders?
I haven't seen Peaky Blinders, but I know he plays a badass Jewish character.
Yeah, he plays like the Jewish crime boss. Mr. Solomon.
Yeah.
So he's amazing in that.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies of his, which is really, I love it because it's such an acting tour de force, is a movie called Locke.
Locke. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a very strange premise. I will tell you the premise, and it won't spoil a single thing.
Okay.
Tom Hardy drives a car across England.
Okay.
That's what happens in the movie. That's it.
All right.
And he takes phone calls. So the movie is him talking to people on the phone in his car.
That's kind of cool.
That's the whole film.
Yeah, that's like if it keeps you if it keeps your attention, that's a good movie.
Yeah, so if you want to see him doing something really good, you know, if you're like, this guy was just, you know, Nemesis just doesn't scratch that Tom Hardy itch. You know, you don't have to go through 4 seasons of Peaky Blinders or however many there are.
Yeah,
go watch Locke. It's 2 hours. It's absolutely mesmerizing, and he's fantastic in it.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
So the M5 is asking me to ask you about an unusual Deep Space Nine episode. I think this is going to be a fun one, but if you can tell me something powerful about it, I will be interested to hear it.
Yeah.
And that's Little Green Men, Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 7, where, of course, our Ferengi characters from Deep Space Nine get blasted into Roswell in 1947.
Oh, man, this is just more just from my love-hate relationship with the Ferengis. I think at first I was just... I didn't know what to do with the Ferengis. I have a Jewish friend that was particularly incensed by the Ferengis, and you can look into that on Wikipedia or whatever. There are some people that think there's Jewish caricature stuff going on with the Ferengis, but regardless, Deep Space Nine made me first fall in love with Quark. He's just a lovable, laughable dude that just warmed he warmed his way in everyone's heart. I'll say that what I hate about the Ferengi, all of the weird stuff with women and being naked, and like he goes to his mom's house, he's like, "Mom, oh, I can't look at you clothed. Please undress." Those are definitely some scenes where I'm like, I'm gonna fast forward. This is like... There's a level of Star Trek horniness that I'm just not willing to explore, and that's where the line was. So there's that whole weird culture thing, but other than that, the Ferengi characters like Quark, his brother, and Nog are some of the most interesting characters I think in DS9, especially Nog and
Rom,
yeah. They have a huge character arc throughout the series. Like they go from being like bit comedy characters just for comedic effect to actually being characters. So yeah, I love those guys. I just love the Ferengis involved in that show. And then with Little Green Men, it just it brings all of the best qualities of Ferengis out in one episode. because it's not just a criticism of capitalism, but it's like it's a criticism and also showing the good parts where they may be and expressing that through their entire culture and their obsession with like money and wealth. And I just love how while you're watching the episode, you can see the gears turning in Quark's head. You know what I mean? Like, you know what's going to happen before it happens in the episode. And that's because, Quark's shisty. You know that he knows how to manipulate people, and he's going to use this situation to his advantage. And like, it's just such a fun episode to watch. From the second that I saw the premise that was folding out, I was like, oh man, I know this is going to be an instant classic. So
you were talking about the arc that the Ferengi characters go through, and I just want to put a plug in for one of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes. It's Only a Paper Moon, for two reasons. Yeah. One, I have an irrational love of Las Vegas, the city where I live. So of course I have an insane love of the episode for that reason. Yeah. But of course also we have Nog dealing with his veterans issues, and being a veteran and being involved in a lot of veterans groups and stuff. That is a thing that means a lot to me. And I know a lot of guys that have a lot of issues. Thankfully, I don't. But
is that in season 7?
Season 7, episode 10.
I think. Well, yeah, because I think that I just saw the episode that he must be going to therapy for. Because he just went through some messed up stuff.
Yeah, the siege of AR 557. Yeah,
that's also a really hard episode. That's a big like Nog character development episode.
Since we were chatting about the Daxes, let's talk about Rejoined, Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 5. Yeah. This, of course, is the one where Jadzia meets one of her old flames from a past life and has an ethical quandary about it. So what's going on with this one for you?
Oh, man, this one is just heart-wrenching episode. DS9 in general, I think, is one of the best series when it comes to romantic storylines and, be it between Dax and Worf or Odo and I'm blanking on her name right now.
Kira.
Kira. Yeah. They take their time to really explore elements of relationships that are difficult. Again, when Star Trek is doing well, I think is when it's addressing these things. It's such a kind of, I don't know, something that a lot of people can relate to. I think this episode, as far as the emotions that are being displayed and being grappled with, because they're not supposed to fall in love at all. They're like, it's against their customs or whatever. And so there's the innate romance to that aspect of it. It's so beautifully dealt with. Yeah, I don't know. It just makes you feel a lot of things, this one. And the relationships, again, in general in DS9, I think, like I'm a single guy right now, but I am trying to get more comfortable with dating, trying to get more comfortable with, putting myself out there. I have a little bit of social anxiety, which we'll get to in a different episode. It's something that I've been working on. And DS9 has been incredibly helpful, I think. Yeah, again, Odo being your kind of, for lack of a better term, your textbook incel character.
Oh, goodness.
No, if you know that terminology, but like...
I do.
He is quite literally like kind of pawning or fawning after, one girl without telling her anything about it and just kind of, worshiping her from the sidelines.
So and, you're calling Shakar a Chad.
I guess by default, a little bit of a Chad. Yeah. And he has to battle this Chad, for her affections, but she doesn't know about his affections until what is it? The time there was a time slip episode where old Odo was like, "Hey, by the way, I'm into you," which is one way that I've noticed Star Trek does a couple times reveals someone's like romantic intentions. It happens in Enterprise as well, where some other version of the character is like, "Hey, actually, I'm into you. Like, we should really make this work once you get to the original version of me."
We didn't plan on talking about this, but I will say that I actually was just watching something totally unrelated to Star Trek. Yeah. And it had one of the best romantic intention reveals of any show I think I've seen in a long time, and it was just so beautifully done, so funny and genuine and just great. So I just want to give a plug out there. If anyone has not seen Derry Girls, there's a really good one in season 3 that I literally watched the episode, and then this is something I never do. I rewatched it again. Like I never do that. And this time I did. I rewatched the whole episode, and it was just so beautifully done. It's so funny, which is kind of their thing on Derry Girls, which is a show that I've completely fallen in love with. So love Derry Girls. Go check it out. It's on Netflix. It's fantastic.
Okay. Yeah,
you will not
Derry
regret
Girls. I mean, I'm from Wisconsin, so that sounds like my neck of the woods. You know,
no, it's about girls in Northern Ireland.
Okay. Well, we have stuff in common, I suppose. But
anyway, I didn't mean to distract you. I apologize for that, but I wanted to give a plug. Right. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's all right. You
were talking about battling Shakar as a Chad.
The saddest part about watching all of Odo's arc was the uncomfortable times I was seeing myself in Odo and how he was wrongfully approaching romantic relationships. Because I think, I was the same way for a long time. I was your kind of a typical kind of incel guy from the aughts, where I wasn't like saying a bunch of horrible shit online or anything like they do these days. But, I was definitely one of those guys that was like, I pined after a girl, never actually like shared my feelings with her, never actually put any, effort into making it work. And then, I would be surprised, of course, when they were dating other people and, not paying attention to me. For a while, that is Odo's arc. And, there was a couple times where I was like, man, why do I feel so uncomfortable right now? And it's like, I know why. It's because Odo is being very truthful about how guys can be. Odo, I mean, I know it's not part of this Rejoined episode, but it's just one of the great romantic emotional arcs in the DS9. Yeah.
No, I get you.
Trying to think of other relationships. Oh, also, Cisco and the space trucker. I forgot her name.
Space trucker. Whenever you say space trucker, right? I'm going to think of Ripley. So,
well, that's what I thought of when she came in. I'm like, oh, so she does what Ripley does, So yeah, that's also an interesting relationship. Like, it's kind of also a little more scattered because they only bring her on to an episode where like they need to cover a relationship thing, but yeah. In general, though, DS9 really, really good about. If you are someone that is
you're thinking of Cassidy Yates, by the way.
Cassidy Yates, that's the one. Yep. But yeah, I was listeners. If you are in your 30s, maybe late 20s, and you're having difficulty approaching the dating game, watch DS9. Just watch all of it, just start to finish. Watch the different romantic arcs. You'll get a lot of interesting and important tips and tricks. And then Vic shows up at some point.
That's right.
Yeah. He's becoming a real star player already the couple times I've seen him.
Well, Vic's one of my favorites, man. So,
such a cool
can't
idea.
go wrong by following Vic's advice.
Yeah. Such a great idea for a character. Sentient hologram guy. Every time he's on the screen, I'm excited.
All right. Well, let's talk about well, I don't know. Well, I'm just going to introduce this and see where we go with this because I don't know what you're going to tell me. So let's talk about TOS Season 2, Episode 14, Wolf in the Fold. This, of course, is the one where they go down to Planet Argelius and Scotty is accused of murder. So we have kind of a little murder mystery thing going on. We got a little bit of a supernatural element going on. But I want to know what in this episode is special to you.
It's hard to describe what makes this so special to me. One thing is just how ridiculous the episode is. It is just looking at it on paper is completely insane. It's something that a lot of my friends in my 20s, we would watch this episode a lot after drinking and just, laugh our asses off at how insane it was. And I think a part of what draws me to it is the writing of the episode, the fact that the guy that voiced Piglet is in it, and he's screaming horrible things about wanting to kill everyone in the episode. And I was a big Winnie the Pooh fan as well. So when I saw that episode the first time, I'm like, is that Piglet? Is that Piglet? Like, and I looked it up and I'm like, that's Piglet. What is going on?
That's amazing. You recognize the voice.
Yeah, I'm. That's the thing. Like, I'm usually pretty good with voice stuff, which is why I got into like audio production type stuff. I think production and just the approach to this episode and story is part of what I'm drawn to by it. There's the officer or whatever in the story, the police officer in the situation.
Yep.
Like, up until like the third act, up until they go up to the spaceship, if you were to look at this situation any other way, it just looks like Scotty killed 3 women in cold blood and will not admit to it, and his captain's trying to cover it up. You know what I mean? It looks really bad for the crew in this episode, I think. And that's part of what I think is so entertaining about it. Because, like, they go through all of this crazy rigmarole that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, in any court of law, like, it would have been thrown out like, kangaroo court. But this poor, like, officer of the public is like, thrown into this weird situation where like the computers are determining what's right, and like he doesn't fully understand the technology and stuff, and he's just kind of backed into this corner where, like, if you take out the Jack the Ripper thing, if you take out like the last like 5 minutes of the episode, it just looks like the Enterprise trying to cover up a horrible murder that one of the people on the ship made. So yeah, it's just, the story is delightful, and it just has all of the, I think that if it just encapsulates all the best quirks of the original series. The original series and like maybe first season of TNG, that still has a little bit of that juice, that Roddenberry juice in it, where it's just like, oh man, they just go so off the rails so fast.
I really enjoy on Trek Profiles when I interview people and they give me a completely different perspective on things.
Yeah.
And one of the people I interviewed very early on in the show was Maggie McNeil, and I'll put up a link to that episode in the show notes page up at trekprofiles.com, and you can go back in your podcast player and listen to that. And one of the things she turned me on to was this idea that the planet in this episode, Argelius 2, is the horniest planet in Star Trek.
Absolutely.
Like by a lot.
100%.
And if you were to go around and ask Star Trek fans, they would all say Risa. They're wrong.
That's true. That's the one that comes up more.
And I've said this a lot. Risa canonically sucks in the show. Everyone who goes there has a bad time, right? Except for like 2 times. That's it. There's 2 characters that have a good experience on Risa. Everybody else, it's a disaster. But Argelius is much more explicit in the show. And again, we've talked about this, like watching Star Trek in the 4 corners of the screen. When you just watch what's on the show, Argelius 2, super horny. So it's very,
Rise is
very
like
different.
The tamed down version of that.
It is. It
like,
really is.
It's like the PG version of that.
Yeah.
Whereas Rise is like, it was like illegal to be, like, it was frowned upon to be jealous.
You
exactly.
can't be jealous of the sexual activities of your partners.
So progressive, this planet.
Very, very different. I encourage people to go back and watch the episode seriously, if this is a topic that you're interested in learning more about. But you can see it. Once you see it, you can't not notice it.
Watching this episode actually kind of makes me want to go back and do the full rewatch of the. I think that basically every series that I do a full watch of is kind of putting me into going to another series. Like, oh, I need the context for this, so like I go back and then I'm like, I guess I got to do all of this series. So
Brad, I just got to tell you, it never stops, man. You literally rewatch all the episodes, and then you go back and start rewatching them, and you can get into discussions about the proper order to rewatch them, and it's like a thing you can do.
And
it never stops.
I can't wait. I can't wait for this endless stream of Star Trek.
Well, speaking about rewatching, we were talking earlier about this idea of, in the streaming world, you really kind of have to binge the show, because if you just rely on your own devices, you're going to end up missing episodes because you're going to only pick your favorites. So you have picked an entire season.
Yes,
Enterprise
that's
Season
true.
3, the Xindi arc.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on here, and why did you pick a season that has straight up space piracy in it, where our heroes do legit space piracy? Why? Why? Tell me.
Need you say more? It's the Star Trek crew getting their hands dirty, which, like, it's like sacrilege. Like you were saying, it is like it's really like not what you're supposed to do in Star Trek. But what I think is important about the season, though, given the context of when it came out, of course, is that this is the first season, I believe, is being shot maybe pre 9/11, but it's released like very close to 9/11.
Yeah, months afterwards. Yep.
Yeah, and at the end of season 2, they tack on this 9/11 type disaster that sets up for the rest of season 3. Being someone that's my age, I'm 33. I lived through 9/11. I was in 7th grade in English class, and I had a brother that was a little older who did a few tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. So I got to hear some of those stories. I got to see some of the kind of difficult nature of war. Mm-hmm. And this season, I think more than any Star Trek I've ever seen, explores that kind of the grayness of war and the difficult decisions that sometimes good men have to make. Not to excuse anything of what they did, but it's just one of those things that I think is very, very interesting to dive into. And Archer, I think, is one of those characters that it's interesting because you hear him reference pre-Enterprise because as this hero Federation brought the Federation together guy, and then you see this season where all of this really gray stuff happens, and he does that space pirate thing that you referred to, which was mm-hmm. just, I could not believe that they allowed that the writers let that be the story.
Yeah, they got away with it. They got it on the air.
Yeah, and I think it's a brave move as a Star Trek episode, however morally gray it is. And yeah, I think that in general is the magic of that season for me. It grabbed my imagination. It really, the way that I think it discusses in a Star Trek way, tries to help the families at home at that moment try and grapple with what they were seeing in the news and what they were dealing with on that front. So, yeah, it brought back a lot of that while I was watching it, I think. Yeah, it ended up just really, really clicking with me because of that.
I will say that Star Trek has always had this ability to include things in the episodes, even unintentionally, I think, in some cases, or maybe not. I don't know. I'd have to research it. But mm-hmm. That were certainly very challenging concepts, even in original series. I mean, the one thing mm-hmm. I think about is Mudd's Women. Yeah. Which is, here's a guy who's straight up engaged in sex trafficking. Yeah. That is what the episode's about. Yeah. Yeah. He's bringing these women out there to be sold as wives. I mean, it's, mm-hmm. And it's all for financial interests. It's really remarkable that they were able to make that episode and actually put it on the air. Yeah. Or then you get into an episode that I think you've seen because you said you saw Picard season 1. Yes. Stardust City Rag, where the 7 of 9 character straight up does a homicide. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, she murders someone. Yeah, we're going to be doing murders now, and you can justify it, but I think Star Trek has always asked some good questions of the audience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that people can justify it or not justify it. I think there's room to argue those things. Yeah, and you can take a stance on it if you want, but I applaud the show when it actually takes a stance. I will say I did not like the space piracy stuff. I don't like that for my characters. Yeah, it made me very uncomfortable, but I loved it from a writing standpoint. I think we can agree on that. Yeah. So talking about some good writing, I'm giving it away, my opinion here. Let's talk about an obol for Charon. That's Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 4. This, of course, is the one where Saru is suffering Vihari, and we have the Red Angel and the Sphere, and we have Tilly with her visions of her friend. So what's going on here for you in this one, Brad? Saru, his character is a character that I very much relate to just from the get-go, because his main thing is he has these things that kind of sense the ganglia. Yeah, they sense anxiety. They trigger when he feels anxious or something's wrong or something's amiss. And anxiety is a big part of his character and who he is as a person and as a species in the Star Trek universe. I struggle a lot with anxiety. That's my main kind of thing that I'm trying to work out through therapy and stuff like that. I am someone that
generally feels a lot of anxiety throughout the day and any given day. There's just, I'm thinking too much about what people are thinking about what I'm doing when I'm in the store, that kind of thing where your focus is on things that don't matter and add to your anxiety. This episode just so perfectly encapsulates the hopeless feeling that you have when your anxiety is to such a point where you just think that life is just the worst it can be and everything is looking down and you're just spiraling into more and more anxiety. When he wakes up in this episode and he's feeling the way he is from the get-go, you kind of already get that feeling like he's inside his head. Mm-hmm. And he's putting more and more stress on himself. Although there is an outside source of some of the stress in the episode, it's for the purposes of the anxiety discussion. It is something that he's trying to grapple with throughout the episode. And then, of course, there's the other aspect of this episode, which for me is it's not religious in this context, but for me, that's, I think, what it represents. Mm-hmm. Because he basically realizes, or he knows that because of what you described, the Vihari, that he believes he's going to die. Yep. He believes he has started his process to die. And first of all, such a great allegory for just anxiety in general, oh, I'm going to die. I'm dead. Life's over. I'm done. It's just it's such a literalized version of that in a character, which I find fun as well. But then the fact that he realizes his whole society is built on a fabrication brought me to my past with faith and such. I'm, a pastor's kid, but I had a stepdad that was very legalistic, very in your face, and just my way or the highway about spiritual beliefs. And so it's something that has been, I've had to grow and have my own experience in and get away from that toxic spirituality that he was trying to put onto me. And that is another way that I relate to Suru in that way, because he all of a sudden is in a different world. He's oh, everything I learned was a lie, or at least falsehood. I had big fear of hell when I was young, way too young to be thinking about my friends going to hell all the time. And that's part of the anxiety that I've held throughout my life. I wasn't expecting a Star Trek Discovery episode to get me like that. Is the thing. I kind of settled into, I was thinking oh, Star Trek Discovery is it's kind of like the movies, it's a lot more action. It's a lot more the flary, cool looking stuff. And then this episode hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, oh man, this is still Star Trek. This is still classic Star Trek. My brother Scott is really harsh on the new Star Trek stuff, and I think that he's a little too harsh on it, And I saw that episode, I'm like, this is
Scott's
good
not
Star
the
Trek.
guest, you are.
Yeah. But yeah, that was one of the things where I was like, this is legitimate. This is making me feel stuff like I want Star Trek 2, and in that way, it kind of helped me appreciate the new stuff more. But yeah, in general, though, the anxiety allegories, I don't know where that arc goes yet. I haven't seen the episode yet. I know there's an episode where he reconnects with his people, but I have not seen that yet. So no spoilers, please.
Not for me.
I'm really excited to see where that goes. I was going through Discovery, and I think I jumped to DS9 and then just never went back to Discovery. So I just keep on going backwards instead of forwards, it seems. Yeah,
you'll find the path that makes sense for you. I don't think there's a right way to go through Star Trek. I'm rapidly coming to that conclusion. I've talked to so many people on this show who started watching in what would be considered the wrong place, and they fell in love with the show. Yeah. So I think you got plenty of good stuff in front of you. And definitely. Just put on something and heck, man, roll a die and let chance take you.
That's what happens when I spend the night at my grandma's house, actually, because there's always 2 episodes in a row on the same channel, different series, but every time I go, I'm like, all right, what's it going to be tonight?
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So, Brad, we've talked about your upbringing. You've talked about your family situation, and you're from a family of Star Trek watchers, it appears.
Oh, yeah.
You've talked about these episodes that really matter to you and are really special to you in some way. My question for you now is, why does Star Trek matter to you at all?
It's one of the greatest forms of entertainment geared for adults that also teaches you how to be an adult. It's got endless application to your life. There's any episode for almost any like emotional situation, you know, they really do try to cover a lot of things. And I like the obvious just positive future that it lays out. I mean, it's the one property that suggests that we get over some stuff at some point. So yeah, I think it's hugely important to our culture and to myself in general. And yeah, I can't imagine not having Star Trek in my life.
Well, Brad, I've enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
But the M5 has signaled me
yes.
that it is now time for the Kobayashi Maru.
Oh, yeah, I was worried about this. Let's see where this goes.
The Kobayashi Maru is a challenging and difficult test, cunningly prepared by the M5 just for you. Should you not only survive the test, but pass it as well, the M5 will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our little program. Are you ready to face the Kobayashi Maru lightning round, Brad?
How ready as I'll ever be.
M5, load the Kobayashi Maru simulation and prepare to record our guest responses.
Simulation prepared.
Which of these Chateau Picard vintages is your favorite? 2234, 2294, or 2305?
I like 2305. I like the ring of that.
What are we stealing from Daystrom Station? The Genesis device, the Thalaron generator, or the Attack Tribble?
Thalaron generator.
Which duty assignment would be worse, the Titan A or the Enterprise B?
Titan A.
You are Captain Shaw's mess attendant. He asks you to bring him a small snack. What are we going to bring him? String cheese, kettle corn, goldfish crackers, or turkey jerky?
Definitely turkey jerky.
Let's visit Metalis Prime. Where to first? District 6, District 7, or District 8?
District 8.
Simulation complete. M5, please compute the results and tell us if our guest has passed the Kobayashi Maru.
The M5 is analyzing.
Brad, I am pleased to tell you that the M5 has calculated that you have passed the Kobayashi Maru lightning round. Congratulations, my man.
Wow. Thank you. I've always wanted to try it out, you know. I didn't know if I had the stuff.
And now, the M5, who has analyzed your answers, will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our show. M5, what title shall we award our guest?
Brad is awarded the title of composer for the upcoming Captain Proton rock opera.
So there you go.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
So, Brad, why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you and tell us about your other podcast?
Oh, yeah. So I have a podcast called The Album Concept Hour. We're twice a month we release episodes now, and we're covering concept albums, which if you don't know are like, you know, albums that have a story or a theme that goes throughout the album, although sometimes we just cover some really badass albums that we want to talk about. So, yeah, we have guests all the time. We have had Ron Wasserman, writer of the Power Rangers theme, on the podcast, as well as Andy Merrill, who played Brack on Adult Swim's stuff. And we're always trying to get cooler guests. Yeah, you can find all of that at linktr.ee/Flyover State Park. That's going to have all of my podcasts, but the Album Concept Hour is the only one that I'm kind of currently putting new episodes up on. And then I also have a YouTube channel where we're also covering music stuff. We just did a couple of music review listen-throughs where we ate increasingly hot wings, a la Hot Ones. So if you want to see me in pain, you can go over to youtube.com/flyoverstatepark.
And we'll have links up to all of that on the show notes page up at trekprofiles.com, which, depending on how you're listening to this, you might be able to access directly from your podcast player. So you can have all of that there. And if not, everything is always linked up at trekprofiles.com. So you'll be able to find all of that there. Mm-hmm. Brad, thank you so much for being part of Trek Profiles.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was really fun to finally be on record about some of the Star Trek stuff.
Here ends this installment of the Trek Profiles podcast. And before we offer a Trek quote to close the episode, I'd like to remind you that you may send us your happy and best wishes, your angry and furious feedback, or videos of yourself lip-syncing the musical episode to feedback@trekprofiles.com or on Facebook or Twitter @TrekProfiles. Anything you send us may be used in the show, or it may be used as a Gorn breeding sack. This time, I leave you with a quote from Captain Pike, who said in the episode An Obol for Charon about engineer Louvier, "I don't think the Enterprise will ever have a chief engineer more in love with his ship." Close quote. Thanks for listening, and live long and prosper.
This handcrafted podcast is brought to you by Stars and Sky Media Lab. It's cosmic.
Should I try to avoid coarse language?
No, you should speak the way you want to speak. Just know that I will bleep it, but I think it's funny when I bleep it, so it's totally okay. So don't bother trying to censor yourself. It's cool. Okay. Yeah,
because that's something I always struggle. I tried to edit mine for the radio once, and I let one slip. I couldn't. I didn't. There's just one swear word that got through the radar, and they're like, I don't know if we can put this on the air anymore.
No, it's okay. I have released explicit episodes, but the episodes have not been explicit for language. They've been explicit for content.
Oh, yeah. That's legitimate.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I've had numerous people on that have talked about suicide issues. I've had people on that have been in prison and started watching Star Trek in prison.
Yeah. That's the other thing I was wondering is this a lot of times turn into like therapy for the guests?
Some people, sometimes. Yeah, I mean, tears are not unusual on the show. I will tell you that. But sometimes it's not too. Sometimes I have people that talk about the lighter side of things, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. For all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things Star Trek is good at, is discussing, those types of things.
Star Trek's incredibly horny.
It's very horny.
Very horny.
Absolutely.
Just like Gene. That's part of Gene's vision.
Oh yeah. There's pretty much like every cultural thing you can imagine in the Star Trek universe. So if you stick to, in my way of doing it, if you just stick to the four corners of the screen, and I'm aware of these things that happen outside, but I really just try to analyze the show like based on what's in the screen. Well, and Star Trek is one of those things too, where like it's something that is bigger than the creators of it. You know what I mean? It's ours just as much as it's the creators at this point. You know what I mean?
Well, I think one of the things that's important to understand about Star Trek, generally speaking, is that for a long time it was owned by the fans. And I'm not talking about in a proprietary legal sense, but what I'm saying is that when the show ended in 1969, fans kept this thing on life support. There was nothing going on from like 1969, until... Yeah. I mean,
my dad tells me about them.
I mean, there were efforts to bring stuff back. There was a TV show that they almost did called Phase 2, and then they decided to make. There was the cartoon, but that really, I mean, I have opinions on animated series, which I like, but it was just kind of a thing that they were doing off the side of their desk. It wasn't like a full on project like some of this other stuff was. And then they came out with TMP, which was 1979. So if you look at it, there was kind of this 10-year history. And during that 10-year period, that's actually where a lot of what we call fandom today really emerged from. The first Star Trek conventions happened in that period. And it was all like homebrew stuff and people making their own uniforms and making their own Star Trek fanfic. I mean, and there was no internet. This was like people were making mimeographed copies, and I leave it as an exercise to the youngins to figure out what a mimeograph is. Mimeographed copies of things. People basically doing like live versions of Etsy stores, bringing stuff to vendors' rooms to sell that they made in their house. The fans, desperately forming their own fan groups and doing paper newsletters that they would mail to each other. So the fans actually kept Star Trek alive for a very long time.
Yeah.
And one of the things I always beat up, I'm sorry, I'm on a soapbox here. I'll wrap this up in just a second. But one of the key things that I think gets me really agitated is when people say that Star Trek fandom is all dudes. Because I will tell you that especially in this period, especially in the 70s, it was mostly women who were running these organizations. The Star Trek there was a thing called the Star Trek Well Committee, and there were a lot of these other fandom groups, the Trimbles.
Well, I mean, famously Lucille Ball. You know?
Well, yeah, she started the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
But I'm speaking specifically about that period in the 70s.
Yeah.
Star Trek fandom, like women were the beating heart of it. And there's a whole list of names. Yeah. And, I don't even want to start naming them because I'll leave some out and, I don't want to be disrespectful. But they really did so much heavy lifting. Yeah. And I think that in a lot of ways, they actually created the fandom culture that we have today, broadly speaking. I mean, there's fans of other things, but I think that the genesis of that, there's a pun. I think the genesis of that actually goes back to how Star Trek fandom was in the 70s, because it was sui generis. I mean, there was nothing that came before it that was even close. And, they decided to sell 2,000 tickets to the Star Trek convention in the hotel in Manhattan, and they sold, they ended up getting 10,000 people cramming in the doors for this thing. Yeah. Today, the Comic-Cons and all that stuff, I think there's a through line that goes back to that.
Pretty much.
Here ends the sermon.
Yeah.
Sorry if that gives you flashbacks.
Well, I was going to say, no, it's like that, and like whoever started doing the smaller Comic-Con type things too, like there was just, it was about whatever you could scrape together back then, and whatever fans you could reach. If you could reach them, then cool. But pre-internet, that was definitely a different game, Now,
I'm just going to tell you right now, all of these questions are from season 3 of Star Trek Picard.
Oh, okay. Sweet. So I'll get to guess.
You will be guessing, but these are I think these are pretty good questions, but you're going to enjoy them. Okay, here we go. So nice. You will have to find out.
I'll have to listen to find out.
You will have to you will have to no, you got to watch season 3.
Oh yeah. Of course.
I will tell you that Todd Stashwick, who plays Captain Shaw, was a last-minute guest addition to the Star Trek cruise.
Oh, really?
And he was a huge hit, man.
Oh, man. He looks like he's really eating up that scenery, dude.
Oh, so, he's loving it. And I mean, the actor himself is loving it. He's loving everything to do with it.
Yeah, he's actually weirdly one of the characters I'm most excited about, I think, for Picard. So he's left an impression.
So I'm going to put you on the spot now, Brad.
Yeah.
Tell me your favorite concept album of all time.
Favorite concept album of all time?
Yep. Right. We didn't prep this, so I'm putting you on the spot. I know that.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just trying to calculate. Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna say it. Operation Mindcrime. Mm-hmm. So it's like a hair metal concept album, and it is just, I don't know, beat for beat, song for song. It's just such a tight, well-constructed, weird concept album, and I think it might be the best ? Concept album.
So true story. I grew up in the 80s in New York.
Yeah.
And the thing for the cool kids, or like lots of kids, you didn't have to be cool to do this, was to get a denim jacket and to get the back panel painted, which is not a thing that people do anymore.
Well, they do it in Madison, but that's not typical of the state.
Yeah, I don't think you see that a lot. That's not a thing that like all the kids are doing anymore.
Yeah, I thought punks were extinct, and then I moved to Madison, and I'm like, oh, there's punks here. Weird.
Well, a lot of kids, the main thing that you would put on that back panel would be your favorite rock band. And we had a whole group of hair metal band kids, and there were Queensryche and Megadeth and Iron Maiden back panels. People had these really elaborate paint jobs up there. I was never cool enough to have a denim jacket, much less one with a painted
I never reached that peak either. But
no. But if I did, I probably would have had like an Enterprise or some stupid Star Trek thing on there.
Right? Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
But I do remember some of these Queensryche ones. Have you done a review of the Kiss concept album, The Elder?
No, I didn't know that they had a concept album.
So, all right, why am I bringing up Kiss? I am not a Kiss person. I am not a Kiss fan,
Yeah.
but true story. I actually once worked in a call center for like a whole summer.
Yeah.
And at the desk across from me was a guy who desperately wanted to be at least thought of as the world's biggest Kiss fan. And all you had to do was look at him and say Kiss, and he would start talking. And like you were done for an hour, and he was just going to go on and on about how glorious Kiss was. And I remember once that he went on this entire like the history of Kiss, in my opinion, lecture. That he sort of had in the back of his head. Mm-hmm. And he like talks about how they were so great and that, things were going so well. And then they did this concept album and in his, I mean, this is literally like a guy told me this, so don't like file this under like true stories. Right. But this guy who was a legit hardcore Kiss fan, he says that's the moment where that's the axis upon which everything spun, and everything went downhill after that. So that's where things went sideways. He said it was not a good album, and they never should have done it. So
that makes me want to cover it all the more. Honestly,
I was curious if you'd covered that one.
Because sometimes we cover ones that have cool stories behind them like that. You know what I mean? Like because that's like a turning point album, which makes it very interesting to me. So
this I don't even know if that's accepted like in amongst Kiss fans. This is literally something like this guy I worked with in a summer like 30 years ago told me this.
Well, that was probably before he could go on the internet and like find like-minded people that parrot the same opinion. It was probably his own, Probably
was. I mean, this guy, if there was a guy who like seriously thought about this stuff and had ranked everything out and, this guy had the whole discography in his head, and you could, he was like Pierce Brosnan in that old show from the 80s where he would just like come out, oh, that movie was from Paramount in 1938, and starred so-and-so. He was like that. He could just, you would name a song and he could tell you like where it came out, like any different versions, who wrote it. I mean, all that stuff. He was really something else. And he had this rule. Yeah. I'll say one more thing. This was back in the day when people made mixtapes. Yeah. And the number one thing he wanted to do was to give you a mixtape. But he was very clear that he would never accept a mixtape. What? He said, this is a one-way street. I give you a mixtape and you will join my thing. I have no interest in your thing. But he was very clear about that.
Real Chad move right there.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not up on all the, I just know some of the terms from this movement. I don't know if Chad applies to this guy or not.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just throw it around.
It was insane. It was absolutely insane.
That's wild. That is wild.
So what's the worst concept album you've reviewed?
Probably Songs with Jane by Maroon 5. It was just a painful one.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It just the further you got in the album, the scummier that Adam Levine felt. So
wow. Okay.
It's just
not holding back with the opinions there, are you?
Yeah, it's just a really like, man, I've never gotten a good vibe from him in general, I guess, but it's just about a toxic relationship where neither of the persons wants to like grow up, you know what I mean? But it's presented in a way that's like it's glorifying it. So it's like, this is just the worst.
There's this guy I follow on TikTok. Yeah. And he does this whole thing like where he just listens to older songs. Yeah. And he's like, songs from my youth that hit differently as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like he's listening to Sting, Every Breath You Take, and like you see him there and he's like doing some work and he's rocking out and then he's like listening to the lyrics and he's like, wait, what? Wait,
excuse me?
And, so he just does this with all the different songs, and you realize, this song isn't like what you think it is.
Well, yeah, that's how I've always been with radio songs, which is part of the reason I think I ended up making a podcast like this, because like I would always like hear the lyrics and I'd be like, are you guys hearing what I'm hearing right now? And most people don't like listen to the lyrics that hard, so there's a lot of weird stuff hidden in some popular songs,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So hey, I have to ask you about the In-N-Out burger hat that's in your background there. That's a West Coast thing. What is that doing in Madison? Because that's not authorized.
I just went into In-N-Out once. My cousins live there, and I thought it looked good on Charlie Chaplin. Wait, Charlie Chaplin, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I almost said Charlie Chan. Charlie Chaplin. I think Charlie Chan's someone on the internet.
I don't know.
Anyway, Charlie Chaplin. I don't know. I thought it looked good on his head, so threw it on there.
In-N-Out has a huge following out here. The super fans are kind of culty.
Yeah, that's a big deal out when you're in California, man. They swear by it. But,
well, we have them here, and I will say, the double with onions, protein style, wrapped in lettuce, delicious. Probably the best protein style burger.
You know what I should have back here is a Culver's hat, but they don't wear hats. So
I don't know what that is. We don't have that out here. I've never.
See, Culver's is probably the Midwest's In-N-Out. Like I would wager that's what it represents in the same kind of vein, because it's mostly just Midwest, and everyone's got their favorite thing from the menu and things. We talk about it when we go to other states. So yeah, I think that Culver's is probably our In-N-Out.
Oh, okay. Well, the thing with In-N-Out is that they have like a very limited menu. I mean, there's a secret menu of stuff you can order, but it's hamburger, cheeseburger, double.
Yeah. It's
you can get the fries and you can get shakes and drinks. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Which is it's cool, I guess.
Well, you know what the thing they do? You know why I like their protein style burgers? And this is like I think because I like the protein style stuff. Is that the lettuce that they have is you get a solid sheaf of like really cold lettuce.
That's good, actually.
So like it holds together. Like sometimes you go to a burger place and you get it wrapped in lettuce and it's like wilty.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing at In-N-Out, how they're preparing that lettuce, but it's like really cold and a solid chunk of lettuce so it holds together.
Yeah.
That's why I love it.
Yeah. So, that's hard to do. That's hard to pull off.
I don't know how they're doing it, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, all right. Boom diggity, man.
I wish you did secondary follow-up episodes, because I could do probably a whole episode just talking about my brother Scott and stuff.
Well, send me his info. Maybe he'd want to be on. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I don't know.
So was that okay for you?
Yeah. That was great. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure my guest always has a good time on the show.
Your timing is impeccable. Like, it is literally 2 hours and 10 seconds right now. Like, that's amazing.
Well, you said, so I try to stick to the thing.
Yeah, the thing with the concept album stuff is, like, every now and again, like, it was just, you have like 3 tracks left and it's like an hour and a half in, hour 45 in. You're like, oh my God, how am I going to get this under 2? So yeah.
So are you
impressed?
Are you listening to the songs as you're doing the podcast?
Well, we do a listen through beforehand, and then for the actual episode, we have 15-second clips of each track, and then we go track by track that way. So if we have like a 20-track album, then like we just have to move faster through the tracks. You know what I mean?
Is anyone even making concept albums anymore? I mean, isn't that like in the streaming area? Isn't that gone?
That you'd think that, but I've found out that people are constantly putting them out. People are constantly trying to reinvent the wheel, even whether it gets attention or not. So yeah, there's definitely some really good ones that come out still now. Like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
Okay, that's an Australian super rock group.
Okay.
And they are like a concept band. They have just endless concept stuff. So, if you're a music guy, I highly recommend checking out King Gizzard, because they're kind of our generation's Dead, kind of.
Oh, I thought that was
Dead?
Fish. I thought Fish was supposed to be the new Dead.
It was Gen X's Dead, but we've replaced them now, I think. With King Gizzard, yeah. Although
so
Fish
is now
loves
dead.
King Gizzard. The guy from Fish actually goes to King Gizzard shows. He's a fan. The torch is kind of being passed on a little bit. So, yeah.
Oh, jeez. I can't even keep all this stuff straight anymore. I could barely keep it straight with the Star Trek. So.
Oh yeah. No, I know. Like it's music is the same in my world, because it's just I have so much music coming at me and being recommended that I'm covering, that I'm whatever. So yeah, constant.
I had a technical problem on an episode like like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, this is unusable. Like I literally can't use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some Googling and I found out like there were 2 things I could do in Audition and it fixed it.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like it was magic. It was literally magic. I was just stunned at what came out of it.
There's like this one guy, Mike Russell.
Mike Russell, musicaudiocreative.com.
He's so good. Yeah, every audition thing, I'm like, hey, Mike Russell, you got to have something about this. Come on.
He does.
So yeah, he rocks.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear someone else is using his advice.
Yeah, all you do is you put in anything like how to do this in Audition. It'll be like the first thing that comes up is Mike from Music Creative.
They're short, sweet, informational. It's so good. Such a great channel.
And he's got that radio DJ voice, with like, deep in the bass, this is Mike from musicaudiocreative.com.
He responds to your comments. Good guy. Good YouTube
unbelievable.
guy.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he's the kind of guy those are the real saints out there, man.
Right.
He's doing the work.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, man.